Fact 1. The Great Emu War. The Great Emu War, also known as the Emu War, was a bizarre military operation undertaken in Australia in late 1932. It was a response to public concern over the large number of emus, large flightless birds native to Australia, that were reportedly running amok in the Campion district of Western Australia, damaging crops. The war involved the deployment of soldiers armed with Lewis guns, a type of light machine gun, with the goal of culling the emu population. The operation was initiated in November 1932. The soldiers involved were Major GPW Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery, along with Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran. They were under the command of Major Meredith and equipped with 2 Lewis guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The farmers in the region had requested military assistance, citing the significant damage the emus were causing to their wheat crops, which were already suffering from the effects of the Great Depression. The initial attempts to cull the emus proved to be far less effective than anticipated. The emus, surprisingly, were incredibly agile and difficult to target. They displayed a remarkable ability to scatter quickly when fired upon, making it challenging for the soldiers to achieve a significant kill count. One of the first engagements occurred near Campion, where around 50 emus were sighted. The soldiers attempted to herd the birds into an ambush, but the emus split into small groups and ran in different directions, making it difficult for the machine guns to be effective. A second attempt was made a few days later, near a local dam, where more than 1,000 emus were reportedly gathered. This time, the soldiers waited until the emus were in close range before opening fire. However, after only a dozen or so emus were killed, one of the guns jammed, allowing the remaining birds to escape. The emu's speed and maneuverability continued to frustrate the soldiers' efforts. They often appeared to be out of range before the soldiers could even fire, and even when hit, some emus were able to run away. The media coverage of the event was largely negative, with reports highlighting the ineffectiveness of the operation and the perceived absurdity of soldiers being defeated by birds. The term Emu War itself was used satirically by some commentators. One ornithologist, Dominic Cervanti, even commented that the machine gunner's dreams of point-blank fire into serried masses of emus were soon dissipated. The Emu Command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics, and its unwieldy army soon split up into innumerable small units that made use of the military equipment uneconomic. A crestfallen field force therefore withdrew from the combat area after about a month. After several days of unsuccessful attempts, Major Meredith was forced to concede that the emus were far more resilient and cunning than anticipated. On November 8th, just 6 days after the first engagement, the military operation was withdrawn. Reports from the period indicate that only a relatively small number of emus were killed, far fewer than the thousands that had been initially targeted. The operation was later resumed, with a second attempt beginning on November 13, 1932. This second phase proved to be somewhat more successful, although still far from achieving the initial goal of significantly reducing the emu population. Reports vary, but it's estimated that around 986 emus were killed during this second phase, using approximately 9,860 rounds of ammunition, an average of 10 bullets per confirmed kill. Major Meredith claimed that his men had suffered no casualties. The Great Emu War became a subject of ridicule and a symbol of military overreach and ineffectiveness. Despite the military's efforts, the emu population continued to be a problem for farmers in the region. Subsequent requests for military assistance were denied, and farmers were encouraged to use other methods, such as fencing and bounty systems, to control the emu population. The war remains a curious and often humorous footnote in Australian history, highlighting the unexpected challenges of wildlife management and the limitations of military solutions to agricultural problems. It stands as a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the emu, and a cautionary tale about underestimating one's opponent, even if that opponent is a bird. It's a good thing they didn't ask for military help again. I bet the soldiers were relieved to not have to chase those birds anymore. Fact 2. The Dancing Plague of 1518. The Dancing Plague of 1518, also known as the Choreomania epidemic, was a truly bizarre and unsettling historical event that occurred in Strasbourg, Alsace, then part of the Holy Roman Empire, now part of France. It involved hundreds of people dancing uncontrollably, often for days or even weeks on end, without rest, leading to exhaustion, injuries, and even death. The outbreak began in July 1518, when a woman named Frau Trophius stepped out into the street in Strasbourg and began to dance fervently. She continued to dance for somewhere between 4 and 6 days, showing no signs of stopping. Within a week, around 34 other people had joined her, compelled by some unknown force to dance uncontrollably. By August, the epidemic had swelled, affecting an estimated 400 people. These weren't joyful, celebratory dances. The afflicted individuals appeared to be in distress, their faces contorted in pain and exhaustion. They were often described as being in a trance-like state, seemingly unable to control their movements. They danced in the streets, in public squares, and even in their homes, often until they collapsed from sheer exhaustion. Many suffered from heart attacks, strokes, and other injuries related to the prolonged and strenuous physical activity. The authorities in Strasbourg were initially baffled by the phenomenon. They consulted physicians who, lacking any understanding of what we might today consider psychological or neurological causes, attributed the dancing to hot blood. Their proposed solution was, ironically, to encourage more dancing. They believed that the afflicted would eventually dance the illness out of their systems. To facilitate this, they opened 2 guild halls and a grain market, constructed a wooden stage, and even hired musicians to play drums and pipes to keep the dancers moving. This strategy, of course, proved disastrous. The continued dancing only exacerbated the problem, leading to more injuries and deaths. As the situation spiraled out of control, the authorities eventually shifted their approach. They began to suspect that the dancing was a curse or a divine punishment. They banned public dancing and music, and instead focused on religious remedies. The afflicted were taken to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, located in a cave in the nearby hills. Saint Vitus was believed to have the power to cure the dancing affliction. The dancers were given small crosses and red shoes, and rituals were performed to appease the saint. Over time, the dancing epidemic gradually subsided. The exact number of deaths is unknown, but historical accounts suggest that it was significant. By September, the outbreak had largely ended, leaving behind a trail of bewildered survivors and a mystery that continues to fascinate and puzzle historians and scientists to this day. Several theories have been proposed to explain the dancing plague. One prominent theory is that it was a case of mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria. This is a phenomenon where psychological stress manifests itself in physical symptoms, spreading rapidly through a population. Factors that could have contributed to such stress in 1518 Strasbourg include famine, disease, and social unrest. The prevailing religious beliefs and superstitions of the time could have also amplified the spread of the phenomenon. Another theory suggests that the dancing was caused by ergot poisoning. Ergot is a fungus that can grow on rye and other grains, and when ingested, it can cause a variety of symptoms, including hallucination. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of the most intriguing and unexplained events in history. It's a stark reminder of the power of the human mind, the influence of social and environmental factors on behavior, and the limits of our understanding of historical events. It serves as a chilling example of how fear, stress, and belief can combine to create extraordinary and devastating phenomena. The combination of historical records and later analysis provide a window into the past. Imagine hundreds of people dancing themselves to death, and nobody knows why. It's like something out of a horror movie. The hot blood theory is wild. Imagine doctors telling you to dance more when you're already collapsing from exhaustion. It makes you realize how much medical knowledge has advanced. The idea of mass hysteria makes the most sense, I guess, but it's still so strange and unsettling. It's a good thing that doesn't happen anymore, or at least not that we know of. The fact that we're still not entirely sure what caused it is the most unsettling part. Fact 3. The Tunguska event. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, a massive explosion occurred near the Podkamenia Tunguska River in a remote, sparsely populated region of Siberia, Russia. This event, known as the Tunguska event, is the largest impact event on Earth in recorded history. It flattened an estimated 80 million trees over an area of 2,150 square kilometers, 830 square miles, and the shockwave was felt hundreds of kilometers away. Yet, remarkably, there were no confirmed human fatalities directly attributed to the blast, primarily due to the remoteness of the impact zone. The explosion is estimated to have been equivalent to 10 to 15 megatons of TNT, hundreds of times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Witnesses closer to the event, mostly Evenki herders and Russian settlers, reported seeing a bluish light, nearly as bright as the sun, moving across the sky. This was followed by a flash and a loud bang similar to artillery fire. A powerful shockwave knocked people off their feet and shattered windows hundreds of kilometers away. The seismic event was registered by stations across Eurasia, and atmospheric pressure fluctuations were detected as far away as Great Britain. For years, the cause of the Tunguska event remained a mystery. The remoteness of the area and the political instability in Russia at the time, the aftermath of the 1905 revolution and the lead-up to World War I, hindered scientific investigations. The first recorded expedition to the site didn't occur until 1927, led by Leonid Kulik, a Russian mineralogist who was studying meteorites. Kulik was convinced that the event was caused by a meteorite impact. However, Kulik's expeditions, He led several more in the 1930s, found no obvious impact crater. This was a major puzzle. He did find the epicenter of the explosion, a vast area of flattened trees radiating outward from a central point. The trees were scorched and stripped of their branches, but they were still standing upright at the very center, a phenomenon known as the telegraph pole forest. This pattern suggested that the explosion had occurred in the air, not on the ground. Over the decades, numerous theories were proposed to explain the Tunguska event, ranging from the scientific to the fantastical. Some early suggestions included a volcanic eruption, a massive release of natural gas, or even the explosion of a giant methane bubble from the Siberian permafrost. More outlandish theories included the crash of an alien spacecraft or a miniature black hole passing through the Earth. The most widely accepted scientific explanation today is that the Tunguska event was caused by the airburst of a stony meteoroid or comet fragment. This object, estimated to be between 60 and 190 meters, 200 to 620 feet, in diameter, entered the Earth's atmosphere at a high speed, estimated to be over 54,000 kilometers per hour or 33,000 miles per hour. As it descended, the lack of substantial meteorite fragments at the site is also consistent with an airburst, as most of the object would have been vaporized during the explosion. Microscopic silicate and magnetite spheres have been found in the soil of the region, which are consistent with the expected debris from a meteoroid explosion. The Tunguska event serves as a powerful reminder of the potential for catastrophic impacts from space. While events of this magnitude are rare, they do occur, and the Tunguska event provides valuable data for scientists studying the risks posed by near-Earth objects, NEOs. Understanding the Tunguska event helps scientists to develop strategies for detecting and potentially mitigating the threat of future impacts. Ongoing research continues to refine our understanding of the event, using computer modeling and analysis of the remaining evidence to reconstruct the precise details of the explosion. That's a truly terrifying thought. A massive explosion out of nowhere, strong enough to flatten forests for hundreds of miles. It's amazing that nobody was killed just because it happened in such a remote place. The fact that it took so long to even investigate it adds to the mystery. Imagine all those wild theories, alien spaceships and black holes. The airburst explanation makes the most sense, but it's still mind-boggling to think about something that big exploding in the atmosphere. It's a good reminder that we're not as safe on this planet as we might think. Fact 4. The Library of Alexandria. The Library of Alexandria, located in Alexandria, Egypt, was one of the largest and most significant libraries of the ancient world. It was a center of scholarship and learning for centuries, attracting scholars and researchers from across the Mediterranean and beyond. Its loss is considered one of the greatest intellectual tragedies in history, a symbol of the destruction of knowledge and the fragility of cultural heritage. The library was founded in the 3rd century BCE during the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus, one of the successors of Alexander the Great. The Ptolemaic dynasty, which ruled Egypt after Alexander's death, sought to make Alexandria a center of Hellenistic culture and learning, rivaling Athens. The library was part of a larger research institution called the Mouseion Museum, which was dedicated to the Muses, the 9 goddesses of the arts and sciences. The library's collection was vast and ambitious. The Ptolemaic rulers pursued an aggressive acquisition policy, aiming to collect all the world's knowledge. They sent agents throughout the known world to purchase or copy books. Ships entering the harbor of Alexandria were searched, and any books found were confiscated and copied, with the originals often kept in the library and copies returned to the owners. A famous story tells of how Ptolemy III borrowed the original manuscripts of the great Athenian playwrights Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides from Athens, promising to return them. He paid a huge sum as a deposit, but then decided to keep the originals and send back copies, forfeiting the deposit. The exact size of the library's collection is unknown, and estimates vary widely. Ancient sources claim that it held hundreds of thousands of scrolls, perhaps as many as 500,000 or even 700,000. While these numbers may be exaggerated, it's clear that the library held an unparalleled collection of works on a wide range of subjects, including literature, history, philosophy, mathematics, science, and medicine. It housed works in Greek, Egyptian, and other languages. The library was not just a repository of books. It was also a center of active scholarship. Scholars were employed by the library to copy, translate, and study the texts. The library was associated with many famous figures of the ancient world, including Euclid, the mathematician, Archimedes, the inventor and mathematician, Eratosthenes, who calculated the circumference of the earth, and Callimachus, a poet and librarian who created one of the first known library catalogs. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria is a complex and controversial topic. There is no single definitive account of its demise. Instead, there were likely multiple incidents over several centuries that contributed to its gradual decline and eventual disappearance. One of the most famous incidents often associated with the library's destruction is the fire that occurred during Julius Caesar's siege of Alexandria in 48 BCE. Caesar set fire to his own ships in the harbor to prevent them from falling into enemy hands, and the fire reportedly spread to parts of the city. There were also reports of deliberate destruction by various rulers and religious groups. By the 4th century CE, the library had likely ceased to exist as a major institution, although some smaller libraries and collections may have survived in Alexandria. The exact circumstances of its final disappearance remain a mystery. The loss of the Library of Alexandria represents a significant loss of ancient knowledge. Countless works were lost forever, including many that we know of only through references in other surviving texts. The library's destruction serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of preserving cultural heritage and the dangers of neglecting or destroying knowledge. It also highlights the enduring power of ideas and the ongoing quest to recover and understand the past. The story continues through modern archaeological digs and research. It's heartbreaking to think about all that lost knowledge. Imagine all those books, all those scrolls containing the wisdom of the ancient world, just gone. It's like losing a huge piece of our history. The story about confiscating books from ships is pretty wild. They were really serious about building that collection, and the fact that there's no single explanation for its destruction makes it even more tragic. It wasn't just one event, but a slow, gradual decline. It really makes you appreciate the importance of libraries and preserving information for future generations. Fact 5. The Year Without a Summer, 1816. The year 1816 is known as the Year Without a Summer due to severe climate abnormalities that caused a dramatic drop in global temperatures, leading to widespread crop failures, famine, and social unrest. This period of extreme weather was primarily caused by the massive eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia in April 1815, one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded history. The eruption of Mount Tambora was catastrophic. It ejected an estimated 160 cubic kilometers, 38 cubic miles, of material into the stratosphere, including vast quantities of sulfur dioxide gas. This gas reacted with water vapor in the atmosphere to form sulfate aerosols, which spread around the globe, forming a veil that reflected a significant portion of incoming sunlight back into space. This resulted in a significant reduction in global temperatures, a phenomenon known as a volcanic winter. The effects of the Tambora eruption were felt worldwide, but were particularly severe in the Northern Hemisphere. In North America, 1816 brought unseasonably cold temperatures throughout the spring and summer months. There were reports of frost and snow in New England and eastern Canada in June, July, and August. Crops were destroyed by the cold weather, leading to widespread food shortages and soaring prices for grain and other staples. Farmers were forced to slaughter their livestock because they couldn't afford to feed them. The hardship was exacerbated by the fact that many regions were still recovering from the Napoleonic Wars, which had disrupted trade and economies. In Europe, the situation was equally dire. Heavy rains and unusually cold temperatures ruined crops across the continent. Ireland was particularly hard hit, experiencing a major famine that resulted in tens of thousands of deaths. The combination of food shortages, economic hardship, and social unrest led to widespread protests, riots, and looting. There were outbreaks of typhus and other diseases, exacerbated by malnutrition and poor sanitation. The cold and wet weather also contributed to a general sense of gloom and despair, with some people interpreting the unusual weather as a sign of divine punishment. The effects were also felt in Asia. China experienced widespread crop failures and flooding, leading to famine and social upheaval. India also suffered from abnormal weather patterns, including a delayed and weakened monsoon, which contributed to a devastating cholera outbreak that spread across the globe. The Year Without a Summer had a number of... The gloomy weather and pervasive sense of despair are believed to have influenced the writing of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which was conceived during a summer spent in Switzerland with her husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley, and Lord Byron. The unusually dark and stormy weather provided a fitting backdrop for the creation of the Gothic novel. Lord Byron was also inspired to write his poem, Darkness. The Year Without a Summer serves as a stark reminder of the powerful influence of volcanic eruptions on global climate and the vulnerability of human societies to climate change. It highlights the interconnectedness of the Earth systems and the potential for events in one part of the world to have far-reaching consequences. The event also underscores the importance of understanding and preparing for natural disasters and climate variability. It provides a historical perspective and helped in the development of climate change models. It's incredible how one volcanic eruption in Indonesia could cause such widespread chaos across the globe. Imagine snow in July and August. It's a truly frightening picture, crop failures, famine, disease, and social unrest. It's like something out of an apocalyptic movie. The connection to Frankenstein is fascinating. It makes you wonder how many other works of art have been influenced by historical events we don't even think about. It's a good reminder of how fragile our food supply is and how much we depend on stable weather patterns. Fact 6. The Great Stink of London, 1858. The Great Stink of London was a major crisis in the summer of 1858, caused by the overwhelming stench emanating from the River Thames. The river had become severely polluted with raw sewage and industrial waste, and the hot weather exacerbated the problem, creating an unbearable odor that permeated the city and disrupted daily life. For centuries, Londoners had relied on the Thames as both a source of drinking water and a dumping ground for waste. As the city's population grew exponentially during the Industrial Revolution, the river became increasingly polluted. Cesspools overflowed, and raw sewage flowed directly into the Thames and its tributaries. Industrial waste, including chemicals and animal byproducts, added to the pollution. By the mid-19th century, the Thames had become a foul-smelling, disease-ridden cesspool. The water was thick and opaque, and the stench was often described as unbearable, particularly during hot weather. Despite the obvious health risks, little was done to address the problem. Several cholera outbreaks in London during the 1830s and 1840s, which killed tens of thousands of people, were linked to the contaminated water supply, but the prevailing theory at the time was that diseases were spread by miasma, or bad air, rather than through contaminated water. The summer of 1858 brought unusually hot weather to London. The high temperatures exacerbated the stench from the Thames, creating a truly overpowering odor that became known as the Great Stink. The smell was so intense that it permeated homes, businesses, and even the Houses of Parliament, which were located on the banks of the river. Curtains in the Parliament buildings were soaked in chloride of lime in an attempt to mask the odor, but to little avail. Members of Parliament debated relocating the government to a less offensive location. The Great Stink finally forced action. The public outcry and the disruption to government business created an unprecedented sense of urgency. Within 18 days, Parliament passed legislation to fund the construction of a massive new sewage system for London. The project was entrusted to the Metropolitan Board of Works, and the chief engineer was Joseph Bazalgette. Bazalgette's plan was ambitious and groundbreaking. He designed a system of interconnected sewers that would intercept the existing sewage flows and divert them to treatment works located further downriver, away from the city center. The system involved the construction of over 1,100 miles, 1,800 kilometers of new sewers, including large, brick-lined interceptor sewers that ran along the banks of the Thames. The project also involved the construction of pumping stations to lift the sewage to higher elevations, allowing it to flow by gravity to the treatment works. The construction of the London sewage system it is considered a landmark achievement in civil engineering and public health, and it served as a model for other cities around the world. The Great Stink of London serves as a powerful example of how environmental problems can reach a crisis point, forcing action and leading to significant improvements in infrastructure and public health. It's a pivotal moment in urban planning. Imagine a smell so bad it shuts down Parliament. That's how bad the Great Stink was. It's disgusting to think about the Thames being so polluted with raw sewage. It's amazing that it took such a crisis to finally get something done about it. Bazalgette was a genius. His sewage system was a massive undertaking, and it completely transformed London. It's a good reminder that sometimes it takes a major crisis to force people to take action on important issues. And it's a testament to the power of engineering to solve even the most disgusting problems. It is impressive that it is still used in some part today. Fact 7. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. The Dyatlov Pass incident is a chilling and unsolved mystery that occurred in the northern Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, now Russia, in February 1959. 9 experienced ski hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, perished under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a scene that has baffled investigators and fueled speculation for decades. The group, consisting of 8 men and 2 women, were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They were on a challenging expedition to reach Otorten, a mountain about 10 kilometers, 6 miles, north of the incident site. The route was categorized as Category 3, the most difficult, requiring significant experience in winter hiking and skiing. The group was well equipped and prepared for the harsh conditions. They began their trek on January 27, 1959. One member, Yuri Yudin, fell ill and turned back on January 28th, unknowingly saving his life. The remaining 9 continued their journey, documenting their progress with diaries and photographs. Their last campsite was established on February 1st or 2 on the slopes of Kolytsyakhl, a mountain whose name translates to Dead Mountain in the local Monsey language, though this translation is debated, and a more accurate one might be Meager Mountain. When the group failed to return as scheduled, a search and rescue operation was launched. On February 26th, searchers found the group's abandoned tent on the slopes of Kolytsyakhl. The tent was cut open from the inside, and the hikers' belongings, including their shoes and warm clothing, were left inside. This immediately suggested that the hikers had fled the tent in a hurry, in sub-zero temperatures and deep snow. The first 2 bodies were found near a cedar tree about a mile, 1.6 kilometers downhill from the tent at the edge of a forest. They were both barefoot and dressed only in their underwear. 3 more bodies, including Dyatlov's, were found between the tent and the cedar tree, seemingly suggesting that they had been attempting to return to the tent. The bodies were spaced apart, indicating they died at different times. The remaining 4 bodies were not found until May, when the snow began to melt. They were discovered in a ravine further into the forest, about 75 meters, 250 feet, from the cedar tree. These 4 had suffered traumatic injuries, including major skull damage and chest fractures. One of the hikers, Ludmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue, eyes, part of her lips, facial tissue, and a fragment of her skull bone. The investigation into the incident was shrouded in secrecy. The official conclusion was that the hikers had died due to a compelling natural force. However, the lack of a clear explanation and the unusual circumstances surrounding the deaths led to widespread speculation and numerous theories. Some of the key puzzling details include the cut tent. Why did the hikers cut their way out of the tent instead of using the entrance? Lack of clothing. Why did they flee the tent in such extreme cold without adequate clothing? The injuries. What caused the severe traumatic injuries to some of the hikers? Radiation. Traces of radiation were found on some of the hikers' clothing, although the levels were not considered dangerously high. Missing body parts. Why was Ludmilla missing parts of her body? Infrasound. Infrasound, low-frequency sound waves, can cause feelings of panic and disorientation. It's been suggested that infrasound generated by the wind interacting with the mountain's topography could have driven the hikers to flee. Military involvement. Some theories suggest that the hikers may have stumbled upon a secret military test site and been killed, either intentionally or accidentally. The radiation found on the clothing is sometimes cited as evidence of this. Paradoxical undressing. This is a phenomenon where people experiencing hypothermia feel a burning sensation and remove their clothes, leading to further heat loss and death. Mansi attack. There was initial speculation that the local Mansi people might have attacked the hikers, but this theory was quickly dismissed. Yeti or other cryptids. The explanation some people prefer is that the hikers were attacked by an unknown creature. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. The combination of strange circumstances, lack of a definitive explanation, and the Soviet-era secrecy surrounding the investigation has fueled countless theories and continues to fascinate people around the world. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the investigation, and in 2020, they concluded that an avalanche, combined with poor visibility and the hikers' inadequate response, was the most likely cause of death. However, this explanation has not satisfied many, and the mystery continues to be debated and researched. The location is now a popular, albeit somber, hiking location. That's incredibly creepy and sad. Imagine being so desperate that you cut your way out of your tent into a freezing blizzard. The missing tongue and the radiation are just bizarre and unsettling details. It's like something out of a horror movie, but it actually happened. The avalanche theory seems plausible, but it doesn't explain everything. It's easy to see why people are still so fascinated by this mystery. There are just so many unanswered questions. It is tragic, whatever the cause. Fact 8. The Voynich Manuscript. The Voynich Manuscript is a mysterious, illustrated codex handwritten in an unknown writing system. It is named after Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish-American book dealer who acquired it in 1912. The manuscript has been carbon dated to the early 15th century, 1404 to 1438. But its origin, authorship, and purpose remain unknown. It is considered one of the greatest mysteries in the world of cryptography and historical linguistics. The manuscript is approximately 240 pages long, although it is believed that some pages are missing. It is filled with colorful drawings and diagrams, divided into 6 main sections, based on the illustrations. Herbal. This section contains drawings of plants, most of which are unidentified or appear to be fantastical. Each plant is accompanied by paragraphs of text, presumably describing its properties or uses. Astronomical. This section features circular diagrams, some with suns, moons, and stars, suggesting astronomical or astrological content. There are also drawings of zodiac symbols. Biological. This section contains numerous drawings of nude female figures, often immersed in interconnected pools or tubs filled with strange fluids and connected by elaborate networks of pipes. Cosmological. This section features more circular diagrams, but of an obscure nature. It also includes fold-out pages with elaborate designs, including what appears to be a map with 6 islands connected by causeways, castles, and possibly a volcano. Pharmaceutical. This section contains drawings of labeled plant parts, roots, leaves, etc., alongside drawings of objects resembling apothecary jars. There are also accompanying paragraphs of text. Recipes. This section consists of many short paragraphs, each marked with a star or flower-like symbol, suggesting recipes or instructions. The most intriguing aspect of the Voynich manuscript. Numerous attempts have been made to decipher the Voynich manuscript over the centuries. Cryptographers, linguists, historians, and amateur codebreakers have all tried their hand at cracking the code, but without success. Some of the theories proposed include cipher. The manuscript is written in a complex cipher, a method of disguising a known language. Various cipher techniques have been proposed, but none have yielded a convincing decipherment. Code. The manuscript uses a code where words or phrases are replaced with code words or symbols. Unknown language. The manuscript is written in a previously unknown natural language. Constructed language. The manuscript is written in an artificial language created by the author. Hoax. The manuscript is an elaborate hoax created to deceive or entertain. Glossolalia. A religious-inspired, but not fully formed language. The Voynich manuscript has also attracted a great deal of speculation about its content and purpose. Some believe it to be a medieval herbal or medical text, an alchemical treatise, an early science fiction work, or even a message from extraterrestrials. Despite the numerous theories and attempts at decipherment, the Voynich manuscript remains an enigma. It continues to fascinate and challenge researchers, and its true meaning may never be known. It is currently housed in the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, where it is available for study, but its secrets remain locked within its mysterious pages. The enduring mystery has made it popular in fiction as well. It's like the ultimate puzzle book, but nobody can figure out the solution. Imagine spending years trying to decipher something and still having no idea what it says. The drawings are so strange and detailed. What were they trying to communicate? The hoax theory is interesting, but it seems like a lot of work to go to for a joke. It's amazing that it survived for so long, and that we still have no clue what it means. It's one of those mysteries that will probably keep people guessing for centuries to come. Seems so detailed, it must mean something. Fact 9. The Taiping Rebellion. The Taiping Rebellion, 1850 to 1864, was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. A massive civil war in China that resulted in an estimated 20 to 30 million deaths, and by some estimates significantly higher. It was fought between the established Qing dynasty and the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, a millenarian movement led by Hong Xiuquan, who claimed to be the younger brother of Jesus Christ. Hong Xiuquan was a Hakka, a Han Chinese subgroup from Guangdong province. He had repeatedly failed the imperial examinations, which were the gateway to government service and social advancement in Qing China. After one of these failures, he experienced a series of visions, which he interpreted as a divine calling. He came to believe that he was the Son of God, sent to Earth to rid China of the demons, which he identified as the ruling Manchu of the Qing dynasty and the traditional Chinese beliefs and customs that they supported. Hong developed a unique syncretic ideology that blended elements of Christianity, Taoism, Confucianism, and indigenous Chinese folk religion. He preached a radical message of social and economic equality, including communal ownership of land, the abolition of private property, and the equality of men and women. He also called for the overthrow of the Qing dynasty and the establishment of a new heavenly kingdom on earth, with himself as the heavenly king. Hong's message resonated with many among the impoverished and marginalized peasantry, particularly in southern China. The Qing dynasty was facing numerous challenges, including economic stagnation, widespread corruption, social unrest, and increasing foreign encroachment. Many were disillusioned with the Qing government and saw Hong's movement as a path to a better future. The Taiping Rebellion officially began in 1850 in Jintian, Guangxi Province. Hong's followers, known as the Taipings, initially consisted of a small band of religious converts, but their numbers rapidly grew as they defeated local Qing forces and gained control of territory. In 1853, the Taipings captured Nanjing, a major city on the Yangtze River, and made it their capital, renaming it. The Taipings also created their own calendar and simplified the Chinese writing system. The Qing dynasty, initially slow to respond to the rebellion, eventually mobilized its forces to crush the Taipings. The war was brutal and devastating, characterized by widespread massacres and destruction. Both sides committed atrocities, and the civilian population suffered immensely. The Qing forces were eventually aided by Western powers, including Britain and France, who saw the Taipings as a threat to their economic interests in China. The Taiping Rebellion gradually weakened due to internal conflicts, strategic mistakes, and the increasingly effective Qing counteroffensive. Hong Xiuquan became increasingly isolated and paranoid, relying on a small circle of loyal followers. In 1864, Nanjing was besieged by Qing forces and Hong Xiuquan died, either by suicide or illness. The city fell shortly after, and the remaining Taiping forces were defeated, effectively ending the rebellion. The Taiping Rebellion had a profound impact on Chinese history. It devastated the economy, caused widespread death and destruction, and weakened the Qing dynasty, contributing to its eventual downfall in 1912. The rebellion also demonstrated the deep-seated social and economic problems in Qing China and inspired future revolutionary movements. The Taiping's social reforms, particularly their emphasis on equality and communal ownership, had a lasting influence on Chinese thought and politics. It is seen as a precursor to later communist movements. That's a truly staggering number of deaths, 20 to 30 million people, maybe more. It's hard to even imagine a conflict on that scale. It's amazing how one person's visions could lead to such a massive upheaval. The mix of Christianity and Chinese beliefs is fascinating, and the social reforms they tried to implement were pretty radical for the time. It's a brutal reminder of how quickly things can fall apart when people are desperate and looking for change. The fact that it weakened the Qing dynasty so much makes it a really important turning point in Chinese history. Fact 10. The eruption of Thera, Minoan eruption. The eruption of Thera, also known as the Minoan eruption, was a catastrophic volcanic event that occurred in the Aegean Sea in the mid-2nd millennium BCE, likely between 1600 and 1640 BCE, though precise dating is a matter of ongoing scientific debate. The eruption destroyed the island of Thera, modern Santorini, a major center of the Minoan civilization, and had far-reaching consequences for the Aegean region and beyond. Thera was a volcanic island, part of the South Aegean volcanic arc. The Minoan civilization, based on the island of Crete, was a sophisticated Bronze Age society with advanced art, architecture, and trade networks. Thera was a significant Minoan settlement with a thriving city known as Akrotiri, which was buried and remarkably preserved by the volcanic ash, similar to Pompeii. The eruption of Thera was one of the largest volcanic eruptions in the Holocene epoch, the last 11,700 years. It is estimated to have had a volcanic explosivity index, VEI, of 7, making it a supercolossal eruption. The eruption occurred in several phases, beginning with Plinian eruptions that sent a massive column of ash and pumice high into the atmosphere. This ashfall blanketed Thera and surrounding islands, burying Akrotiri and other settlements. The eruption then intensified, generating pyroclastic flows, fast-moving currents of hot gas and volcanic debris that swept across the island, destroying everything in their path. The final phase of the eruption involved the collapse of the volcano's magma chamber, forming a large caldera, a submerged crater that is now the defining feature of Santorini. This collapse triggered massive tsunamis that devastated the coasts of Crete and other nearby islands. The effects of the Thera eruption were widespread. The ashfall affected a vast area, reaching as far as Anatolia, modern Turkey, and Egypt. The tsunamis caused significant damage to coastal settlements, particularly on Crete, where they likely contributed to the decline of the Minoan civilization. The eruption may have also had a significant impact on global climate, causing a period of volcanic winter, although the extent of this effect is still debated. Evidence of ash layers is found in ice cores and tree rings from the time. The archaeological site of Akrotiri on Santorini provides a remarkable window into the Minoan civilization at the time of the eruption. The city was buried under layers of volcanic ash, preserving its buildings, frescoes, and artifacts in remarkable detail. Excavations at Akrotiri have revealed a sophisticated urban center with multi-story buildings, elaborate drainage systems, and stunning artwork, showcasing the advanced nature of Minoan society. The eruption of Thera is a significant event in both geological and human history. It serves as a reminder of the power of natural disasters and their potential to reshape landscapes, disrupt civilizations, and influence human culture. The ongoing research at Thera and the surrounding region continues to provide valuable insights into the eruption, its effects, and the Minoan civilization that it profoundly impacted. The dating of the eruption also impacts a wide range of historical timelines for the ancient world. That's another terrifying example of nature's power. Imagine a volcano so huge it wipes out an entire island and creates tsunamis that devastate nearby civilizations. The connection to Atlantis is fascinating. It's like a real-life disaster movie inspiring a legend. The fact that Akrotiri was preserved like Pompeii is incredible. It's like a time capsule of the Minoan civilization. It's a good reminder of how vulnerable even advanced societies can be to natural disasters. And it makes you wonder what other lost civilizations might be out there, buried under ash or water. Fact 11. The Halifax Explosion. The Halifax explosion, which occurred on December 6, 1917 in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, was one of the largest man-made accidental explosions in history prior to the development of nuclear weapons. It devastated a large section of the city, causing widespread death and destruction, and remains a significant event in Canadian history. The disaster was the result of a collision in Halifax Harbor between two ships, the SS Mont Blanc, a French cargo ship fully loaded with wartime explosives, and the SS Immo, a Norwegian vessel chartered to carry relief supplies to Belgium. Halifax Harbor was a vital hub for Allied shipping during World War I, with ships constantly coming and going, carrying troops, supplies, and munitions. The Mont Blanc was carrying a highly volatile cargo, including 2,300 tons of wet and dry picric acid, a powerful explosive, 200 tons of TNT, 35 tons of benzol, a highly flammable fuel, and 10 tons of gun cotton. The ship was late arriving in Halifax and was eager to join a convoy heading across the Atlantic. The Immo was leaving Halifax to pick up a cargo of relief supplies in New York. Due to a series of miscommunications and navigational errors, the two ships collided in the Narrows, a narrow strait connecting the inner harbor to the Bedford Basin. The collision itself was relatively minor, but it caused barrels of benzol on the Mont Blanc's deck to rupture and spill. Sparks from the scraping metal ignited the benzol, creating a fire that quickly spread out of control. The crew of the Mont Blanc, realizing the imminent danger of a massive explosion, abandoned ship and rowed frantically to shore, warning people of the impending catastrophe. However, many people in Halifax were unaware of the danger and were drawn to the spectacle of the burning ship. At 9:04 and 35 seconds AM AST, the Mont Blanc exploded with devastating force. The explosion leveled the Richmond district of Halifax, an area of about 2 square kilometers, 0.77 square miles. The blast created a pressure wave that snapped trees, bent iron rails, demolished buildings, and grounded ships. A tsunami, generated by the explosion, surged through the harbor, washing over the shores and causing further destruction. A cloud of white smoke rose to over 6,000 meters, 20,000 feet. The immediate aftermath of the explosion was chaotic. Approximately 2,000 people were killed, and an estimated 9,000 were injured. Many were blinded by flying glass or debris. The explosion and the resulting fires destroyed thousands of homes, leaving many people homeless in the midst of a harsh winter. The response to the disaster was swift and widespread. The Halifax explosion led to significant improvements in harbor safety regulations and the handling of dangerous cargo. It also prompted research into the effects of explosions on buildings and the human body, contributing to advancements in blast injury treatment and structural engineering. A public inquiry was held to investigate the causes of the disaster, and ultimately, both captains were found partially responsible, though charges were later dropped. The Halifax explosion remains a defining moment in Canadian history, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable tragedy. It is commemorated annually in Halifax, and the memory of the disaster serves as a reminder of the importance of safety and preparedness. The blast was so strong that one of the Mont Blanc's anchor shanks, weighing over half a ton, was found 2 kilometers, 2 miles away. That's a truly horrific event. Imagine a ship full of explosives detonating in the middle of a city. The scale of the destruction is just unimaginable. The fact that the crew tried to warn people, but so many were drawn to watch the fire, is particularly tragic. The response from other cities, especially Boston, is heartwarming. It shows how people can come together in times of crisis. It's a good thing they improved safety regulations after that, but it's a terrible price to pay for those improvements. Fact 12. The Children's Crusade. The Children's Crusade is a name given to a series of events, or possibly a combination of events and legends, that reportedly occurred in 1212. It is a complex and controversial topic, with historians debating the extent to which it was a real historical event, a series of misinterpretations, or a largely fictionalized story. The traditional narrative describes thousands of children and young people from France and Germany embarking on a crusade to the Holy Land, believing that their innocence and faith would allow them to peacefully convert Muslims to Christianity. The traditional account of the Children's Crusade is based primarily on a handful of contemporary chronicles, which are often brief and vague. These sources describe 2 separate movements, one originating in France and the other in Germany. The French movement was reportedly led by a young shepherd boy named Stephen of Cloyes. He claimed to have received a letter from Jesus Christ, instructing him to lead a crusade to Jerusalem. Stephen gathered a large following of children and young people who believed that he had miraculous powers. They marched across France, singing hymns and carrying banners, intending to reach the Mediterranean Sea, where they believed God would part the waters, allowing them to walk to the Holy Land. The German movement was reportedly led by a boy named Nicholas of Cologne. He also claimed to have received divine instructions to lead a crusade. Nicholas gathered a large following, primarily from the Rhineland, and they marched over the Alps into Italy. Many of the children died during the arduous journey due to hunger, disease, and exposure. The fate of the children who participated in these movements is largely unknown. According to some accounts, the children who reached the Mediterranean Sea were disappointed when the waters did not part. Some were reportedly sold into slavery by unscrupulous merchants. Others may have returned home, disillusioned and impoverished. Historians have questioned many aspects of the traditional narrative of the Children's Crusade. Some argue that it was not a crusade in the traditional sense, but rather a series of popular religious movements fueled by social and economic unrest. The term children may have been used figuratively to refer to the poor and marginalized, rather than literally to young children. Another theory suggests that the Children's Crusade may have been a misinterpretation of a pueri movement, where pueri referred to landless peasants or wandering poor, rather than children. These groups may have been seeking to improve their social and economic conditions through pilgrimage or other religious activities. It is also possible that the accounts of the Children's Crusade were embellished or exaggerated by chroniclers, who may have been influenced by religious zeal or a desire to create a dramatic story. The lack of detailed and reliable sources makes it difficult to determine the precise nature and extent of the events serve as a metaphor for innocence lost. That's a really sad and disturbing story, even if it's not entirely accurate. The idea of thousands of children setting off on such a dangerous journey, believing they could perform miracles, is heartbreaking. The theory that children might have meant the poor and marginalized makes a lot of sense, but it's still a tragic picture of desperation and exploitation. It's a reminder of how easily people, especially in times of hardship, can be swept up in religious fervor, and how important it is to question historical accounts, especially when they seem too incredible to be true.